You heard somewhere that Figma is a wonderful platform for building no-code websites, and you're wondering, how do I learn Figma? Well, in this beginner tutorial, I will teach you not only how to get started with Figma, but also be designing this portfolio website from scratch. We'll be looking on how to apply few effects and even micro interactions like this. So what are you waiting for? Let's jump right in. Okay, I know you're new to Figma, that's why I'll be trying my best to break down everything before we start building this portfolio website that we are going to be achieving in the same class. I like dividing my interface into 4 parts, but before then, let's head on to the home page. This is where all your projects are going to be displayed. So I've done so many of them. That's why you can see so many of those projects here. Then at the top menu here will lead you to create a design project. I've already created one, which is the one we are going to be working with in creating this design. The remix link is going to be in the description, so you can just go ahead to remix the project and find out the parts you might have missed out. I like dividing my canvas into 4 parts so it will be easy for you to navigate through. The first part, which is the top section, is where all your tools are. Most of your tools are going to be displayed. The first toolbar is Insert. This is more like a preset library where you can access for templates, navigation templates, even icons, and so many other effects, cool animations we are going to be adding later on in this class. The first part, which is Wireframe, is more like the AI aspect of Figma, which will allow you to just type in your prompt and it will use this prompt to generate designs for you directly on your canvas. So you can just try that out. I think I have a video on this. You can check my channel, though I've forgotten if I created a video concerning Wireframe. So that is for Wireframe. Moving down, you can see all this. These are templates like sections you can add to your designs, but I don't advise that if you're a newbie, because one thing I like preaching about is you learning how to design your project, your design from a blank canvas. But if you are just starting out and you want to use templates, you can just go down here and set for whatever thing you're looking for. So just like this section or this pricing section, if I want to add it to my design, all I have to do is just to like drag it and paste it on my design. Then automatically, I think it should appear somewhere at the bottom. Okay, right. You can see it here. So that's it for the insert menu. You can just take your time to brush through all these elements to see what they are used for. If you already know the basis of Figma, you can just skip this section. I'm only taking this time to explain things down for beginners. So that's it for the insert menu. Over here is where you can access your frame, rows, columns, grid, and how to add images, videos. But I'll tell you the truth, I don't make use of this just because they are shortcut to it. If I want to bring out a frame, I can just hit F on my keyboard and drag out a frame. Then if I want to add like an image to my design canvas, I'll just use the shortcut which is Shift plus I on your keyboard. Then drag out a frame. It will then prompt you to add an image. It's just that simple. So instead of you going through this long process of always going to this top menu to access for your frame, rows, or everything you might need when designing, just use the shortcut. But in the course of this tutorial, I will show you some shortcuts you can use to cut the time when designing. Here for inputting your text, the shortcut for it is still on your keyboard. Then the next option here is vectors. I mostly use this when I want to customize some certain icons. Then the last part, which I'm not really going to be talking about in this tutorial, is CMS. CMS means content management system. You have to store reusable data. Just think of it like a database. I use it mostly when I want to reference some product on my website. But that is it. But I have a very detailed tutorial on this, so you can just go to check my channel and you will see the CMS video. Then the other end of this top menu deals with your site's localization, everything concerning your site settings. This is where you can go to. Moving to the second menu, here is your site settings, where you can set the name of your site, the language, the subtitle, the description of your site. The next part here deals with your site analysis, which helps you to see how your site is doing when it's being published. Then here it's to preview what you have done. So this is the tutorial, of course, we are going to be achieving in this class. So here's the preview button to preview the exact design that is on the design canvas. Then the second to the last button there, it's where you can invite more like collaborators or to invite your client to see what you have done so far on the design. Then the last button here, which is very clear, is the publish button, where you get to publish this website and it goes live in minutes. On my left hand side is where you can find the layers of your design. So all the design elements we are going to be using or that is already here, you can see them on the layers panel. I don't know if you have noticed this. If you have been using Figma for a while, you will notice that transitioning to Figma is actually easy because the interface looks more like Figma, but Framer has more advanced added features. Moving over, the center part is obviously your design canvas, where we are going to be working on, where we are going to be designing on. So that's it for the canvas. Then the last part I'm going to be touching, it's your properties, which deals with the setting of each element. So if I was to bring out this frame, which is already outside here, the frame here has its own properties on this section. But if I was to select like an image, you'll see that the settings on the properties menu changed. Though there are still some things that syncs alike, but things that concern the settings of the image, you can find out on the properties menu. After explaining some key features you need to know when you're starting out using Framer, I think I've created a soft ground for us to begin with this design. So I'm going to add a new page by clicking this plus here, a new page. Yep. As a beginner, I know the first thing you're thinking about is let's start designing right away, but it doesn't work that way in Framer. To create a responsive design that adapts to all screens, there are steps we need to take to make sure that our site is fully responsive, which is working with Stack. As a beginner, if you don't know what Stack is, or if you are coming from a Figma perspective, just think of Stack like auto layout. So auto layout in Figma helps us to create anything responsive. So just flip the other side and change it to Stack. So in Framer term, it's called Stack because anything that we are doing that we want to make responsive, we make use of Stack. The first thing I like doing here is to turn my desktop into a stack. On the properties menu, you can see it's called layout. So just click the plus beside it. But if you want to use a shortcut, the shortcut for it on the keyboard is Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter, and you'll be able to select a stack. But you can see nothing actually changes. But the only difference you can spot from this is through the layers panel. You can see this box that is divided into two. This quickly tells us that this desktop is no more an ordinary frame, but now a stack. The next one we're going to be bringing out here are sections. For the hero section, all the element that concerns the hero section is going to be in its own dedicated frame. Then for the subsection, all the section that belongs to the subsection will be in an ordered section or in an ordered frame. So I'll bring out F from my keyboard, select a frame inside of the main section, change the width here to fill, and also do not forget to turn this into a stack. On the stack setting, I'm going to change that to 0 because I don't want any space to be at the top of the section. I'm not going to make use of the color on the hero section, so I'm going to do away with that. But before that, the hero section is not supposed to be in the center of our frame. So it's supposed to stick to the top of the desktop. So let's address that. So I'll head on to the layers panel, select the main section. I'll then change the distribute from center to start, so the frame within it can start from the top of the main section. But as you can see, it's not taking shape just because of one tiny issue. If you look at the direction here, you will see it's in a horizontal path, which means it's not going to start from the top of the frame just because it's in a horizontal path. The only way we can fix this is to turn the horizontal to vertical and it will take that shape. Let's rename the section within it to hero section. Then this is what we have to do away with the color because we are not going to be using it. So in this way, we have structured this design for responsiveness. So let's add in our design element. The first thing I would like to add is this animated background that we have here. So it's easy to get, it's just a component we just copy and paste on our design. So to get that, you can check the remix link in the description. You'll be able to access this file. When you do, you come over to assets, then you will see all this. These are a lot of components I use throughout this design. So the name of it is called Lightray. Let me quickly go back to our design canvas so we can just add it directly. So I'll go over to assets, then choose Lightray and click insert. So in this way, this is what you will see. For us to make this component to work, we have to first wrap it in a stack. So I'll bring it out like this, hit F on my keyboard and drag out a frame just inside of it. So something like this, then turn the frame here into a stack. Then the frame inside of the component that we're going to be using, I'm going to set the width here to fill and also set the height of it to fill. So this is when we can now utilize this component. So Ctrl S to cut and Ctrl and V to paste it on the hero section. First, to make this component fill everything else of our hero section, we are going to change the position here from relative to absolute. Then we are going to set all pins here from top, left, right, bottom to 0. So I'll just do this 0 here, 0 here, and 0. After you change all pins to 0, it's going to fill the whole canvas of the hero section frame. So let's look for how we can customize this Lightray. I'll begin with the color first. I already have like a color code I use in the one I created before now. So I'll just Ctrl V it and paste it. For the intensity of this light ray, I'm going to put it down to 13. For the light rays, I'm going to put it to like something like, let's go with 37. Let's see how this is. For the reach, let's just add a few more pixels to it, like 47. 47 is okay to go. So the position is where I'm really more concerned in because it's looking one-sided. So I'm going to reduce this to 50% so it can come to the center of our frame. We are done with this section. Let's move on into adding text to our hero section. If you see, I kind of tweaked the color because I didn't like how it was looking, so I just had to switch the color of this light ray. So I hit here on my keyboard and write hi and praise. After writing out the text and we click outside of our frame, you will see that you won't see the text that we just typed out. We are seeing the frame that is wrapped inside, but we are not seeing the text. This is because it's behind this animated background we added. So how can we bring it to the front of the hero section? It's by using Zindex. It's nothing complicated. Just go over to your styles, select Zindex, and this is it here. So the way Zindex works is this. By setting a higher index, it's going to bring out the element that is behind it to the front. So the element with the highest index is the one that is going to be referenced over the one with the lower index. So let me show you guys what I mean. So by setting its index of like 2 pixels, we can see now that we are seeing our text. For example, if I was to select the stack that contains this light ray, going over to this index and maybe put its index like 4. So by putting its index of 3 pixels, which is higher than its index of the text field, it's going to reference it first before the text field. So by reducing this index to like 1 pixels, because of the text that's carrying its index of 2, is going to reference it first. So it's just that easy, nothing complicated about syntax. I'll then change the size of this from 16. Let's go with 61. Then I will select, because it's actually a 2 text thing. If you look at this, this is a bold text, then the other one is like a slanted text. So it's actually 2 text. So I'm going to select the first part like this and change it from regular to semi-bold. Then for the other one that is here, I'm going to change the font to instrumental serif. I will then change the weight of it from regular to italics. Next up, I'll copy this like Ctrl D and change the second part to a product designer. For the second part of this text, I'm going to change the size of it because I don't want it to be the same size of the first text. So I'll reduce it from 62 to 50 pixels. If you take a look at the one I did, you can see that the text is falling under a vertical part. So how can we fix that? It's quite simple. But before then, let's change the second part of this text to instrumental serif and change it from regular to italic. I'm going to select the 2 texts here and group them in a stack. So Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter. Then I will change the direction from horizontal to vertical so you can take that vertical part that we want. For the subtext, I'll just go back to the main design here and copy it because we don't really have time on our side. After then, I'll group this text and the subtext in another stack, so Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter. The next thing we're going to be adding here is our button. But I forgot to add one thing before we started designing this whole stuff, which is adding our breakpoint. So I'll click the plus here to add that for the tablet and the last one, which is for the phone, so that later on we can come back to this breakpoint and fix some things that may not be looking good. If you're a beginner in Framer, one thing you should understand is this, that whatever thing you're doing on the desktop applies to other breakpoints. So if I was to delete this text here, is going to delete on other breakpoints. But one thing is this, whatever changes you do to any of those breakpoints doesn't change other breakpoints. Like deleting this text on the tablet is going to affect only the tablet breakpoint and not the overall breakpoint. Next up, let's create our top navigation that should stick to the top of the frame or the desktop here. I'd have shown you guys on how to create a top navigation that adapt to all screen sizes, but I already have a tutorial on that. You can just wait to check that. But for the course of this tutorial, and not to really get you confused as a beginner, we can use one of the presets here in the insert menu. So you go over to navigations, you can choose whether it's a light mode or a dark mode navigation you want to add. The next thing to do here is to select a top nav of your choice. So I'll be going with this first one. I'll just drag it and paste it on the design. So by previewing this design, the top nav is supposed to stick to the top of the frame, but as we are making a scroll, it's scrolling with the section of the hero section, which is not supposed to be so. To make this top nav stick to the top of our desktop, we have to remove it from the main section frame. So this is what I mean. So Ctrl X to cut it, select the desktop, and Ctrl and V back. You won't see it now just because it's at the bottom of our frame. So use your arrow key to shift it to the top of the frame. In this way, we can set the position from relative to fixed. But there again, we have encountered the same issue that we're facing when we're applying our text. So you know what to do in this case. Head on to styles. There's already Zindex out here. So I'm going to select a higher Zindex so that this top nav can be referenced over the light ray frame. So let's just go with 3 pages. This should fix it definitely. To access the component canvas of this nav bar, we simply double click. This way we can make changes to all these individual text. So if there's anything you did like to switch here, you can just change it right here. Resources. Let's just go with resources. So heading back to the main page, you will now see that the new text has been referenced. But let's add a little effect on this top nav. So simply double click back. This is where I'll go over to the color. This is it, and raise the opacity down to like 55%. Heading back to the main design, you'll see it's giving this glassy effect. Let's make it more fun. Head back to the component canvas and we'll be applying background blur. So go over to styles, go over to filters and BG blur. So this is it here. We can just raise the BG blur to around 31. Let's see how this is. So this is looking much more better. Let's preview this design that we are doing. So by making a scroll, you will see everything. The nav bar is sticked to the top of the desktop and you're seeing this background blur on the hero section. So let's move straight into adding our button. I'm going to create this button outside of our frame. Then we'll just Ctrl X and Ctrl V inside of our hero section. So hit here on your keyboard. I'll be writing contact me. Change the color of it on the properties panel from this black to white. Then I'll be applying a stack on it so that we can be able to create a border of our button. On the properties menu, I'm going to add a fill to it and apply a padding of 22 on the stack setting. I'm going to change the color of the text to black, but let me show you guys a simple hack you can just try out when you are designing. So instead of coming each time to change the color of the text to suit that for the button, you can actually use a blending mode on the text. That will then decide the color that suits the background instead of you manually doing it. So select the text, go over to styles, choose blending mode, and on the blending mode, I'm going to select different. So in this way, instead of manually tweaking the colors of a particular text to fit a particular background, you can just use this blending mode that I just showed you guys. So by changing the color of the fill maybe to black, you can see automatically the color of the text changes to the opposite of the background. But let me just tell you the truth, sometimes this blending mode doesn't get it correct because we are going for a blue button. Choosing a blue button, it's giving me this color that I don't like on the text. So that's why I just said it's a hack you can just try when you are designing. I'm going to be moving in blending mode. So let me just remove. There's actually a white text that I wanted to add. Let's change this into a gradient. Fix it like this. Tweak the color. Let's raise this up a bit like this and round the corners. After doing this, we can even choose to add a little hover effect on this button. So let's just do that. So right click, create a component, and let's just call this hover, create component. Then on the second option here, I'm going to click it and select hover. Then I'm going to tweak the fill color of the second button. Let's go over to the first one and I think a darker one will do. So you just add a little interaction to our design. It looks nice anyway. For the second button we are going to be adding is more like an outline. So let me just create the outline version here. I'm going to click this other button, go back to the color, and I'm definitely going to be removing it. We'll be adding a border to it to create the outline version of it. So let's just create something like this. I will then rename this other one to outline. By making a copy of this button here, we can now decide the variation that we want. On the hover component, we can then select the outline to create the outline version of it. We can change the content of the text on the component menu. So let's just tweak this, select everything. So let's change this to my portfolio, or let's just say C portfolio. After that, you know what to do. We are going to group this button in a stack. So Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter. Ctrl X to cut it, then click the hero section frame and Ctrl and V. To keep everything ordered, we are going to be wrapping the text field and the button stack together. So select the stack of the text and click that of the button, Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter. We are done with our hero section. Let's move on into the second section. We'll be applying this. Let me show you guys what it looks like on the previous state. These are actually people who have commented on my designs. I just had to crop them out of Instagram and put them here. It's actually a nice idea for your portfolio. I'll be showing you guys right away on how you can do that. I'm going to create a frame that will wrap everything else plus the image and this hover effect you saw a while ago. So I'll just hit F on my keyboard, then change it to width fill, and of course anything responsive you should use stack. So I've turned it into a stack already. Then for the color, let's just raise it up to something like this. For the color, we won't be making use of that, so just do away with that. I'll be renaming this to second section on the layers panel. Inside of this second section, we'll be applying a padding to it. On the right, I'll set a padding of 40, and on the left, I'll set a padding of 40 as well. I will then bring out another frame inside of the second section that will contain that image that you saw on the main design. So F on your keyboard again, and I'm going to be setting the height of it to 550. For the width of it, I will change it from fixed here to fill. Then I will head back to the second section frame because I want it to actually stick to the top. I've taught you guys on how to do this. Let's just change it to horizontal. Then change the distribute to start, so you can start from the top of the frame. The corners of this frame is actually too sharp, so I'm going to be rounding the corners. Let's just go with 20. I'm going to be making a copy of this image that I used on the main design. So Ctrl C, and let's head back to ours and paste it, Ctrl and V. We can also choose to wrap this frame of this image in another stack. If you have taken note of one thing, it's that we have been mentioning stack, stack, and stack. So if you want to create anything responsive, you have to utilize stack throughout your design. I'm going to turn this frame, let's just say image holder. After renaming this, like I said, we are going to turn it into a stack. So just do that on the properties menu. We're actually done with this aspect, but there's something I really want to show you guys. Heading back to the main design, previewing the one I did, you will see when I'm trying to make a scroll, the image inside of this frame is kind of scaling in. I'm going to show you guys how to achieve this kind of effect when we're moving into animating our design. Now let's talk about this hover effect. How was I able to achieve this? It's pretty simple. All you have to do is let's head back to our design. I'm going to be bringing out another frame that will wrap this particular component I want to add. So F on your keyboard, just drag out something like this, put it down here. I'll be tweaking the color of the color because this is not what you're going to use. Let's just use black because it's actually what we wrap this component. I don't want to make it too obvious. Going over to the width, I'm going to select it to fill width. To add this component I'm talking about, this hover ticker component, you go back to your insert menu and look for interactive. So these are different kind of effects. As you can see, this one is a slideshow component, but the one we are going for in this class is called ticker. I'm just going to drag this into the frame. I will then resize this to the height and width of this frame, so somewhere around here. Extend it to the left, and let me zoom in. Put this one to the right hand side. The next thing to do from here is to turn this frame into a component. From there we can then attach all those comments that you saw. For the comments, I'm going to source them from my portfolio because I used it on mine. So this is it here. One is for the desktop size and the other one down here is for the mobile frame. Right click, create a component, and let's just call this hover. So I will then paste the one I copied from my portfolio, those comments, Ctrl and V. Let's just put it somewhere around here. In this way, if you take a look at the right hand side, you will see these 3 dots on the component. These are what we're going to be using to attach to this particular comment that I copied from my portfolio. So all you have to do is just to drag it out like this. So you will see this kind of a prototype wire, wherever it is called. Then I'll connect it to one. Just do the same for other ones. Second. When we started this tutorial, I explained that the properties menu is home to element settings of a particular element. So on this particular component, it has its own settings on the properties menu where you can control the speed of it, the direction you want it to take, the alignment, the gap between it. We are going to be tweaking some things here. Let's go with the gap. I'm going to extend it to somewhere around here because I don't want it to be, too close to each other. So something like this is okay to roll. Then for the speed, I'm going to reduce it to 80. I like going really slow on this. Heading back to our design, let's preview this to see if it's working fine. As you can see, it's very easy to create this kind of interaction. We didn't even spend more than a minute trying to sort this out. So talking about the mobile frame, because if we zoom in here, you will see it's actually big for the mobile frame. We can actually readjust this. Head back to the component. I'm going to be creating another variant of it, and let's rename this to phone. Let's take it to somewhere down like this. Instead of this phone variant, I'm going to be hiding the ticker that belongs to the desktop. So head on to the layers panel, right click on the ticker component, scroll down and you will see hide. I'll head back to my portfolio here and copy the comment because I actually reduced the size of this one. If you take a look at this, the text of this is actually bolder than this. So I'll just have to copy this. Since we're not using the ticker component that belongs to the desktop, we're going to bring out another ticker. So just go back to interactive and drag out, and just that same way we resized it. So just take your time to resize it to the size of the frame. It's time to connect this component to this comment here, the one I resized to fitting into the phone. But you will notice something, those three dots we're seeing here, it's not there, and without it you can't connect it to this comment. So how do we go about this? This is something I kind of encountered when I was doing mine. So the thing I did was this: I had to bring out this component outside of the frame and I was able to attach it to this comment. After linking everything, I will then bring it back inside of the frame. So that's what we're going to be doing. So just bring it out like this and you will see the three dots. So I'm just going to take my time to connect it. Ctrl X it here and paste it inside of the phone variant. It should work this way. So this one thing about Framer, once you use it every damn day, you will always find ways to maneuver some certain things that might not be working. So heading back to our design, let's go back to the phone breakpoint, and on this variant, I'm going to be selecting it, go down the properties, and I'll be able to tweak it from variant 1 to the phone variant. Once you do that, you'll see to reference the phone ticker component, but you'll notice something, that we are not really seeing the full height and width of this. We can address this. This should be an issue from the component canvas. I'll simply reduce the height of it. I think this should work. So perfect, it worked. So this is how simple it is to create this interaction both for the desktop and for the mobile. Let's move on into the last stage where I'll be showing you guys on how to achieve this kind of interaction. Let me just preview this. We'll be showing you guys on how to achieve this kind of over interaction between these text on this section. For the last section, I'm going to bring out a frame for that. Just repeat the same process because all we want is to make sure that everything is broken down into sections. So that's what we are taking our time to do for the hero section, for the second section, and for the third section. So I'm going to turn this from width fixed to width fill, then also turn this into a stack. I'll be increasing the height to something around here. But you notice something, that the desktop height is kind of limiting the frame inside of it. So let's address this. So I'm going to check the desktop if the issue is coming from here. It's actually set to fit content. So let's go to the second option, which is in main section, wrapping everything else. So go over to the height of it. You can see set to fixed. I'm going to change it from fixed to fit content. In this way, if we were to increase the size of the frame, it's going to adapt to the height of it. There again, we don't need the color, so we are just going to be doing away with it. Hit on your keyboard. I'll be writing out our first text, which is our services. It's actually too small, so I'm going to change the size of it from 12 here to 30 and hit enter. Because we want it to stick to the top of the section, what do? We go back to the stack setting of this particular section. So go back to the direction, change it to vertical, and change the distribute from center to start. The next thing we are going to be doing here is to add those big text that we're seeing on this home page. So this is it here. So let me head back to our design, hit on your keyboard, and we are going to be writing UI UX. I think I use 83 as the size, so let's just check if 83 will be good. So 83 here. For the color of it, I didn't actually use a white one. I used something of this color code 616161. For the weight of it, I'm going to change it from regular to medium. We'll be applying the second subtext, which let me just copy from here. So this is it here. Head back to the design. Hit on your keyboard again. And let's Ctrl V. For the size of it, I use 15. So let's just go with 15 here. But we have one problem. How do we take this text from where it is in the center to the left hand side, somewhere around here? But the moment we leave our trackpad, it's going to return back to the original position set by the overall frame that's wrapping it. On the setting of the stack, you can see that the align is set to the center. And if we should take it to the left hand side, both the text, our services is going to move with it. But what we want is to make this text, our service, to be fixed at the center, while this one here we go to the left hand side. To fix this, I'm going to group these two texts, UI UX and the subtext here, Ctrl+Alt+Enter, then go over to the alignment here and change it to left. So this stack thing is actually based on hierarchy. The overall frame in stack controls the behavior of the individual element inside of it, but to control the behavior of a particular element inside a section, we just wrap that element in a stack. In that way, we now have a sub-superior hierarchy that can control the behavior of the frame inside of it. As you can see, this section needs padding because the text is actually touching the left hand side. So to fix that, we go over to the overall frame and change the right hand side to 40 pieces and change the left to 40 as well. To create this interaction, we have to turn that text field into a component and add another hover effect. So it's that simple to do. So let's head back to our design, right click on this and turn it into a component, and let's just say hover text. Selecting this, I'll click the second option and choose hover. In this second state, which is a hover state, I'm going to change the color of it from this to white. Hovering through it is now giving this two interaction thing. For us to be able to use this text component to reference out other text field that we want to add, we have to set a component variable on the text. So head to the component canvas, double click, selecting the text, go back to the properties, click content and create variable, plain text variable, and let's just rename this as title1. I'll do the same for the subtext. Simply click it, go over to the content, click it, create variable, add plain text, and let's just call this title2. After setting a variable on this text, we can then duplicate it to create other text field. For this second part, I will go back to the properties and change the UI UX text to branding. So also for the last one, I'm going to change it to Framer. After changing all the text, this is literally everything we have to do here. So by previewing this, let's see how it works. So the hero section, everything is looking nice. We have our hover comment going on there. But where we're more concerned in is the section we just dealt with. You can see the hover interaction is creating while you are scrolling through our service menu. So this is how simple it is to create this kind of interaction. For the last part of this design, it's a section where you can reference your portfolio or your product. But one thing about designing is this: it's not really by working harder, but working smarter. So instead of creating this frame from scratch and looking for how to add images and text field, you can just use sections. So if you go over to your insert menu, go over to sections, and I think this is it here. You can just simply drag and drop on your design canvas. So right away, this is it at the bottom of our frame. We can then populate this with images if there's anyone you did like to add. So if there's any image I want to put here, I'll go over to fill. In this last section, will allow me to input an image into this particular area. Since we are done designing, let's move over to customizing our design for other breakpoints. I'll be starting with the text field, because if you take a look at the text field here, you can see it's actually too big for the mobile frame. So there's actually a way we can do this. Instead of coming over here or manually tweaking the text from the mobile breakpoint, which is making use of rem value. A rem value is a multiplier of a base. What we're going to be doing here is to apply individual base values on this breakpoint. So all this I just said about rem values and base values, I know it's actually confusing. Let me show you how to go about that now. So select the main breakpoint here, go over to the properties, and you will see base. So I'm going to apply a base value of 30. Go back to that of the tablet and select a base value of let's go with 25 here, and go to the mobile breakpoint and set a base value of 20 here. After setting individual base values on this breakpoint, the next thing we're going to be doing here is to turn this text on the hero section change it from pixels to rem. If you notice one thing, you will see the text is actually smaller here, and the text is not really small, but okay, that suits a tablet breakpoint. I'll simply do the same for the other one. Change the text here from pixel to rem. We'd even tweak the size of this text on this mobile breakpoint, but by setting a base value and changing the text from pixel to rem, it has actually helped us in customizing this breakpoint without us manually coming to tweak things around. I'll simply do the same for the subtext and change it from pixel here to rem. So I think everything on the hero section on all breakpoints are now looking much more better. Let's head on into this last section that we apply this big text, because if you look at the mobile breakpoint here, you can see that the branding is missing a letter. We can also choose to turn this into a rem value to fix other breakpoint, but I have to tell you the truth, rem values don't always work. So let me show you guys what I mean. Heading to the component canvas, I'm going to tweak this from pixel to rem, and let's see what it looks like on the mobile frame. You will see that it's even looking 2 times bigger than it was before, and the mobile screen is a mess, a total mess. The only reason why this happened is because our text was too big, and changing it into a rem value will multiply the higher base value that we set. So if we were to work with these rem values to reduce the size of the text on the mobile breakpoint, we have to reduce the base value. But by reducing the base value, we affect the stuff we did on the hero section. There's always going to be another way around this. So let me just cancel the rem value we changed here. So to reduce the size of the text on the mobile breakpoint so that this text can be fully referenced, we have to set a component variable on the size value of the component. I don't know if this makes sense, but let me just show you guys what I mean. To set a component variable on the size of this text, so we can be able to reduce it on the phone breakpoint, you select the text, go over to the properties menu, go to size, and you will see this plus that is beside it. You simply click it. This will allow us to apply a variable on the size. So I will say font size 1. On the properties menu, you can now see the new variable that we just added from the component. So I'm going to reduce this, let's just say 70. I don't know how this 70 will look. Okay, and do the same for both and change it to 70 here. So this is looking much more better. By previewing this, we can now check if everything is responsive, which it is. So everything looks nice on all breakpoints. One last part before we wrap up things for this tutorial is applying few effects on this text. I'm going to be starting with this first text. You click it, go over to your properties and look for effect. So the one we are going to be going for is a text effect. Everything on the default setting on this particular text effect is actually okay to roll. So let's preview this to see how it looks like. You can now see the cool effects that this text is giving. It's more like it's refreshing when we are reloading the site. So let's simply apply it on the second one. But instead of us starting from afresh in copying the text, we can just copy here and apply it on the second text. So go back to effect and paste, and do the same thing for the last one. Go back to effect and paste it here. The only thing we are going to be tweaking here is just the delay, because I don't want everything to come at once. So go over to the effect here of the second one, and I'll be setting a delay of, let's just say 0.7 seconds, and let's set the other delay to 0.9 seconds. So by previewing this, you can now see the cool effect that this text is giving. It's giving this rich vibe. I mean, you can apply this to your design and it will look so expensive. So one last effect I'm going to be showing you guys is how to make this image on this second section scale when we are zooming in. So let me show you what it looks like on the one I did. You can see that the moment when I'm trying to scroll through this section, the image is actually zooming in. So let me show you guys on how to achieve that. So to apply that effect, I'm simply going to select the image within it. You go back to your properties and click effect. We'll be going with scroll transform. On the setting of the scroll transform, the trigger that I want it to be is that when we are scrolling, which is on scroll. So when we are scrolling, it will apply this effect that we are going to be adding now. The other trigger you can add layer in view or section in view. But for this effect, we want it to take when we are scrolling through the section. From the from state, I'm going to change the opacity to 1 and the scale to 1. We are more concerned with the to state, what happens after. So click it, and I'm going to scale this in like this. So let's see what this looks like. So by previewing this, you can now see when we are scrolling through this section, the image is actually scaling in when we are scrolling. So this is how easy it is to create this kind of interaction. I can tell you Framer is very easy. I mean, it's very easy to master. But wait, we just have one tiny micro interaction to sweeten everything up that we just did. So by previewing the one I did, the micro interaction I use is that when we click a particular stuff, you can see this burst effect is given on our cursor. You can actually change the preset of this click effect. So by selecting this on the properties menu, we have the ring effect, the burst effect, which is the one I used, and you have all this preset for you to actually use and test. So by setting a ring effect, let's just go over with ring and see how this is. Going over to this section, you can now see it's creating like a ring click when we're actually clicking through this section. So let me show you guys how to do it. You simply go over to our design. Let's just go over here. I'll go over to assets. Most of the components I do make use of, I do outsource them from Framer University. So if you made this project, you go over to Framer University folder and click it. You then see all the components, even the one I didn't use on this particular tutorial. They are all here. You can just copy them and use them in yours. The one we're going to be using is this click effect. So I'm going to click the three dots and click insert. To make this click effect to work, it's actually an invisible component because this is it right here, like this is it. So if I want it to be referenced in this second section, all I have to do is just to copy it and paste it anywhere on that section. So I can just Ctrl X and Ctrl and V it inside of this second section. So it's going to come to the bottom of it. It doesn't matter. On the properties menu, you can now change the particular presets that you want to go for. Let me just choose burst. So by clicking on the second section, it's actually working, but I know you can't see it just because we didn't customize the color. So you go over to the particular component here and change the color on the properties to white. So let's preview this once more. So by clicking on this section, you can now see the micro interaction is given in this section. So if there's any other place you'd like to reference this, or maybe you want to put it on the hero section, you can just simply Ctrl C it here, paste it on the hero section, and just check it out if it will work. Obviously it is. So this is it for this tutorial. I hope I've been able to teach you the basics of Framer and how to design something beautiful like this. I mean, this is some A-level shit that is going on here. Talking about publishing our design, we can actually click the publish button here and it will actually go live in real time. Let's check that out. So by clicking the publish, it's going to take less than a minute to load and you will see this our site has been created, but our website is carrying this weird name. So Framer has actually prepared a subdomain for you in case if you don't have one. We can actually customize this subdomain that Framer has actually prepared for us. So instead of it carrying this delightful context, whatever number it is here, we can customize it to whatever we want to name it with. So you click the add domain, you go back to this section and let's just say praise YouTube. After you don't type in this, you just click the checkbox button so you can verify what we just did and you see the subdomain has been connected. So by going to this website, it's going to carry praise tutorial then end with the subdomain name. It's much more better compared to that the weird name it was given before. So let's just go to this website and by loading it on my browser, is actually a full-blown website. So this is how easy it is to create and get started with Framer. See you guys in my next tutorial. If you like content or tutorials like this, make sure you click that subscribe button. Comment down below what you want to see next on this channel. And until next time, keep designing.